Obviously, we want to know how to start a conversation. And believe it or not, I'm going to go more in depth with this on the last day of this week. For now, let's just say when it comes to initiating a conversation, it's not the most important part. It can feel like a big thing, but it's really what you say next. But I do want to touch on it now. So, what can you say to start a conversation with someone that you do not know? I've mentioned this in YouTube videos. I will briefly repeat it right now. My favorite go-to in any sort of closed social circle environment, whether that's a college, it's a party, you see someone who you've consistently seen in line at a Starbucks, is you walk up, you say, "Hey, I don't think I've met you yet. I'm Charlie." And you would plug in your name in that case. That one is amazing. It presumes that this is a social environment. You should be meeting people and the person will introduce themselves back. There's also what I call the human Google, the human Twitter. Human Google is where you ask someone a question that has been on your mind. Human Twitter is where you make any sort of statement. Somebody just did this to me the other day. I was watching a television at the gym, just waiting for my shake to be made. Old school, the old movie was on TV, and the guy said, "Oh my gosh, I love this movie." And that was all it took to start conversation. It's not a lot. We will dive deeper into it in the final day of this week. For now, I want to talk about where people actually struggle. They think it's the beginning, but it tends to be the, well, what do I say next? And they often think that they need to have these particular topics that are really engaging. They need to have some killer question to kick things off. And the truth is, oftentimes what you have on the tip of your tongue is the most valuable thing. When you think about the ways that you communicate with your friends, you don't have certain topics that you have pre-planned that you know you're going to say. There's not necessarily any sort of question that you know you have to ask them. The conversations develops organically. But for some reason, we think that adding the element of planning and thinking to our new conversations with new people is what's going to really get those going in the right direction. It's not the case. The more you think, the more difficult conversation will be. So the goal becomes, at least for this starting part, how do we lower the filter on what we are thinking and allow ourselves to say it? And I know a lot of people worry that they're going to say something stupid. So I want to tell you guys a couple of stories for how this seemingly innocuous, stupid first statement can turn into something more. A while back, this always sticks with me, I had a client, and we were working on this. She was a shy person. And she said, "I didn't know what to do. The other day I had this new personal trainer. I show up, this guy is incredibly gregarious, incredibly charismatic. We sit down and he says, 'So, tell me about yourself.' And I am shy, and in that moment I don't know what to say. I'm going, oh my God, why would he ask me such a big question? I'm a shy person, I don't know where to begin. And I just kind of sat there and said nothing, and conversation struggled to get going, even though I was paying this person to speak to me and to train me. I said, well, hold on a second. You didn't say anything, but you just described this whole internal dialogue that you had. So what were you thinking? And she said, I wasn't thinking anything. I said, that's not true. You just told me all the things that you were thinking. You just think that those things aren't good enough to verbalize. So let's start over. What is it that you were thinking? No judgment. And she said, well, I was thinking that's a huge question, that I'm a shy person and I don't really know what to say in situations like these. I said, perfect. What if we started with that? So he says, tell me about yourself. And you expressed honestly, oh gosh, where do I begin? Honestly, I'm a shy person. I often struggle to answer these sorts of questions. Now, he might have laughed and then clarified his question. He said, okay, well, what about work? Or what do you like to do for fun, right? At least conversation is moving. The problem is that this particular client and so many of us think that what we are thinking is not good enough to be expressed. And unfortunately, we raise that bar, especially with strangers and especially with people that we admire. But if you look at organic conversations, if you look at how your friendships mostly started, they were in those moments where you were unfiltered. Sometimes people start friendships or even relationships when they are drunk. It's not that what they're saying was brilliant. It's that that filter was brought down. So that's something that we're going to be working on today, and I just want to introduce this mindset to you. Thinking more, planning, screening everything to think, is this good enough? Are we going to be on a really powerful conversational topic if I start with this? Is going to be counterproductive. If you actually chart the course of conversation, and I will do this for you in some breakdowns, I've done this my whole life, they oftentimes start off so silly, so inane, innocuous, and then connection can build from what I call conversational paths. I've referred to this in the past, if you've heard me, as conversational ammo, and I used to think of the game GoldenEye from my childhood, which was one of those games where you run around, you pick up guns, and there's just ammo all over the ground. And so you were kind of exploring this game to see where you could get more supplies. That was what I thought of. But the idea of conversational paths has stuck with me. The more things that you put out there, the more chances to connect you create. So if somebody asks you, tell me about yourself, and you say, well, I live in, she was from Melbourne, and I'm a mom. Okay, those are two conversational paths that you've given. But let's give another example. If you say, well, I just moved to Melbourne from here. I'm a mother of two kids, and I'm constantly carting them back and forth to, I guess they call it football practice or rugby or whatever it is they play in Australia. And I like to eat Skittles. Whatever it is, you have laid out so many more conversational paths. I spoke to someone who was a consultant, and they would oftentimes introduce themselves and say, I was a consultant from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I'd say, great. Tell me a little bit more. Lay out some more paths for me. You say, well, I'm a consultant from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I just moved here 2 years ago, and I work primarily with startups. And on the off time, I like to go fishing. Like, great. If I'm not a consultant, and I don't live in Chattanooga and I've never been, but I enjoy fishing or I enjoy the outdoors, you have given me in that second example something to connect with. And I almost think of Velcro at this point. I know I'm throwing a lot of metaphors at you. This is truly how I think of it. You've got these paths, you've got these Velcro. You're giving the other person opportunities to connect to what they choose to connect to. So let's stick with Velcro. Put Velcro out there early in conversations. And the best way to do that, circling back, is by lowering your filter. The person who said, oh my gosh, I love this movie, gave me something to latch onto. We started talking about old Will Ferrell movies. He elaborated a bit more. There was some more Velcro for me to connect with, and we wound up chatting for 5 or 10 minutes while we waited for our shakes. Now I know this person at the gym and I can say hi to him in the future. It wasn't a brilliant, incredible, amazing, mind-blowing conversation, but this is how these sorts of deeper connections start. So allow yourself, and we will experiment this, to lower the filter, put out more Velcro, and create more conversational paths for yourself.